Hey, what's up, guys? I've been getting this question a lot, so I thought I'd take some time to answer it with you guys. I've talked about this before on my trend trading video, so if you haven't seen that, I'll put a link maybe in the upper corner or in the video below this, or in the comments below this. So in today's video, we're going to talk about how to find altcoins to buy and hold. Now, what I would recommend is starting out, you see on the upper chart here, just start out on the weekly. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go through the market and we're going to look and scan for weekly altcoins. Now, I'm just going to go through Binance, but you can do this on Huobi, KuCoin, a lot of these different altcoin sites. Now, what you want to do is you want to mark off your key weekly levels. So what I'm looking for as far as key weekly levels is where's our weekly support? Where's our weekly resistance? So those are the most obvious levels. Obviously, there's one up here as well. And then there's a little one right there as well. So what I'm looking for in a good swing trade on a lower time frame is we lost this support zone, which then becomes resistance. And if we zoom in, we'll probably see that it kind of rejected a couple times here. So what I'm looking for is I'm looking for a break and a retest and a hold of that level. Then what we can do is we can get an entry in at that level, and then we can target just the top of the range. Now, I don't like to do these low sat coins because it's really hard to get in, really hard to get out with big position size. There's really long queues. So a lot of times, instead of using the BTC pair, you can use the Tether pair, the USDT pair. And sometimes it's a little bit easier to see. Sometimes it's a little bit harder to see the same kind of concepts. So on the weekly chart, on the weekly listing, we can see that we came down and actually touched down perfectly on the support. And a lot of times coins like to do that for some reason. They love to come down, retest that level. But as far as USDT weekly levels, I'd say that level, resistance, 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 resistance. So once we break that, and then we retest that on the weekly, that would be a pretty decent area to get in with a stop loss below the previous weekly candle. Because the thought is that is going to hold because it held as resistance, that is now going to hold as support. So if we held it down here, our stop loss would be 18%. So that means we have to target at least 36% just to get our 2-to-1 RR. Now what I would be doing is I would be looking at this candle over here, and we're going to zoom into the daily to get a little bit more accurate on this. But that looks pretty good for maybe a TP1, and then that looks pretty good for a TP2. Weekly resistance here, weekly resistance there. Now if we zoom into the daily, what we can see is that the weekly level looks very clear also on the daily as far as USDT. Rejection, rejection, rejection. And then it came all the way back down, tested that support zone down here, right there. And then it formed another daily, I mean, you could have got in as early as down here. Another daily resistance point, resistance, resistance, boom, flipped it. Nice bullish engulfing candle. Came down, flipped it here. And then your target here could have been, right there. So, which is still a pretty decent, 50% on your USDT pairs. Now, obviously the liquidity is a lot lower on something like this, but I'm going to go through a few examples, okay? So just really, really simple and clean support and resistance levels. Now, this is the most obvious trade. Resistance, resistance. Most people think that, oh no, we're up this high. That means we're way overbought. There's no way you want to buy that. Well, this means that the trend is really strong because we had a lot of supply here. We finally broke that supply, which means demand is overtaking supply. We held it as support, so we can get in an entry there, stop loss below, this candle. We can also look at, a few other things. And then our first TP target can be here, 3466, and then our second TP target can be there. We know that there's resistance there. Do we know that it's going to stop us on the way up? I mean, it had a little rejection. You can see it kind of tried to pull it back, but then it continued upwards all the way up to that second TP target. Now, these are hindsight trades. Some of these I took, some of these I didn't take. Some of these I didn't take. So let's take a look at Cody. This is one that I am personally trading myself, as well as the community that we're trading with. So Cody is a really interesting project. Lots of fundamentals. I really like their staking program. It's one of the best staking programs. So the FA is there. So that gives us a kind of a good solid FA bias. And a lot of people say you can't do FA approach with altcoins, but I find that a lot of the FA creates hype cycles with retail and creates some buying opportunities with some of the buy algorithms. When you see like a high volume spike on a news release, it triggers some of the volume bots. So it is something to consider. So we had support down here. We actually had a little bit of a triple bottom on the daily. I didn't trade that at all. And then we see that we had some resistance here, resistance. It broke that, came up, tested it down here. Not super clean. Maybe if we used this level a little bit cleaner, but I would have been using this level personally. It broke through, not super clean there. Now, what I was also looking at is this downtrend pattern, basically from the top of that wick to the bottom of this wick. And I was also looking at this 238 region. Now, if you look at it on the weekly, this area right here is very, very key. So the 250 zone. And then this area up here is also very key. Okay, so those are levels to keep in mind on the weekly. But if we look at the daily, this is what I was looking for personally, and this is what we were looking at in the group as well. So I had my daily bias. I said if we get a daily close above 235, that's my long trigger to get in this trade, and I'm going to be targeting this zone up here, 305. But really, I'm looking at for a swing trade. I'm looking a little higher, maybe 420, and maybe even this level here, 391. But so this was the trigger on my trade daily. Boom, we broke it. We got the pullback into the level that I'm looking for. So I got my daily bias. We've also got higher low, higher low. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom into the hourly, and the hourly is basically going to give me my entry. So here's my daily level. Okay, on the hourly, it's a little more choppy here. But we got the breakout, really strong volume. That's what I wanted to see. And then we had the pullback into my zone. So that's where we filled 235 to 245. This was my fill zone. And then my stop loss is basically below 225. Anywhere below this range, this trend line, I'm going to want to get out because the trend is broken. And we actually held it. We could have actually bought on the trend, but instead I bought on this level right here. So now the next thing is, where do we take profit on this? So the take profit zone that I'm looking at is right around this 304 level. That's take profit zone 1. And the reason why, I'm not going to bet that we're going to head all the way to these highs. We know that we've got clear supply at this level. So I am going to play the odds of probabilities, and I'm just going to lock in profit here. I'm going to take 75, 80% of my profit. I'm going to allow 20% to move up. I'm going to move my stop loss up below here. So we lock in, so we basically keep our trade from going negative, and we're going to lock in some profit there. And maybe we get a push up, but now there's something else to add to our chart. We have a daily rejection level. So now we've got another resistance level that we could see it do something like this. So this is a real live trade. So 304, 305 to 311. And then we could see it come back down, maybe chop around here, and then retest this for either a double top or a breakthrough and flip, something like that. So just from a daily perspective, that's what I'm looking for. That's how I'm taking profits. I'll add back in on this 268 level if we get a test back down here. Really good solid project with lots of good FA, but the chart also looks really clean. So when you have both of those line up, it's usually pretty good. Excuse me for 1 second. Okay, and I hope you guys can see this chart okay as I'm doing this. So let's take a look at a few more examples, and I'm going to show you how to quickly scan your charts for some of these trade setups. So we're looking at the weekly charts, okay, and these aren't going to look pretty, especially when they're lower cap, and you do want to ensure that you've got some nice volume, and I'll show you some of the things that I'm looking for. So Dusk is we've got this weekly resistance level at 490. Okay, we've also got, if we up this here, we also had this weekly resistance level here. Okay, so it just flipped that, and it actually touched it once, twice. So it flipped this weekly level. So if you're in Dusk and you're looking to take profit, well, your take profit level is probably right up here, 450. Now the higher probability trade is when it breaks this zone. So we're going to long the support, previous resistance level and we're gonna long that up to this level here, 716. So our condition is if this breaks, and then if it pulls back into our zone, and then we're going to long that up to here, and our stop loss is going to be below the previous low of the last candle. What we really want to see is we want to see a nice bullish engulfing with volume. So again, you can just throw some alerts on this, click add alert on the horizontal ray, so you know when it breaks up above it. Until then, you can look in the daily to find trades. As you can see here, that weekly level looks something like this. Not a super clean chart, but if we just use the weekly level alone, we had a breakout, touched it. Just not a chart that I would trade currently. I'd definitely look for that to break better. T-Fuel, this is kind of a tough chart. This was just kind of pumping on the Theta news, the Samsung partnership. We had, basically daily support here. I did not take that trade. A little bit too high risk for me. This is a really good example as well. One, it's sitting at 48 sats. So really low sat. So it's got a lot of potential. One sat movement is 2% move. So just these little sat movements can really compound pretty quickly. But the same goes on the downside. So you want to make sure that you're always managing your risk and always accommodating for it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove everything. We're going to look at our weekly level. So we could see here was our support level. Okay, here's another weekly level. Less clear, but it did break it with nice volume and retest it around 34 sats. And that's nothing to sneeze at, 58% move. And this was one that I was looking at adding at 55 sats before it broke down. Once it broke down, I cut the trade completely. And so on the weekly level, we can see here daily, same thing. So we're looking for a breakout on one, a retest of that 53 level. Now you want it to break out first. Why? Because you want to see buyers are interested in this enough to break this previous support resistance zone. Once it breaks there, then we can get long with a stop below here, and we can target here, right? 70 sats, and here 102 sats. So that's pretty simply how we can find those targets, and we want to make sure that we at least get a 2-to-1 RR. So we can set our stop loss around 15% or 20% as long as our targets are 40 to 50%. Okay, so that's an easy way to kind of analyze a coin pretty quickly, and we'll just keep going. So let's take a look at Lend. Lend had a saucer accumulation pattern. And we can see here, there's the daily. Let's look at it on the weekly just so we can kind of maintain what we've been doing. So here's the weekly level, and this is actually cleaner. Look at that weekly resistance. Okay, we got the saucer accumulation, and this is also a cup and handle. But the saucer accumulation pattern, really common with altcoins. It broke our support structure back here. It's also being listed on Coinbase, which gave it this really strong momentum here. I think they listed it back there. But it had that breakout structure, and then where's our take profit levels? Well, our take profit levels is 242. That's still 119% trade. Now, there's a couple things we can look at. So here's our resistance. It comes up, tests it, and we know that's resistance because it did it back here. It did it right here. Now, we take profit there, right? 119%. Well, once it breaks through and it retests that level and it shows that it holds, well, we can just relong this level. We could set our stop right below the previous low, so 14%. So we want to make sure that our target's at least 28%. So maybe we're just targeting here, so 45%. Another solid trade entry that is very, very valid. Now, there's a lot of those coming up right now. So BNT, this is a little bit of a harder coin to figure out, but I'll show you something that some of these coins are doing right now that's important to pay attention to, and I'll even give you an example of one that looks like it's ready to move here pretty soon. So this is instead of a horizontal structure, it's more of a diagonal structure. So resistance, 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 and we're using the daily candle closing bodies. So candle closing, candle closing, candle closing. And what we can see is if we modify this just slightly, we don't really even need to modify it, but I think I have a little bit better on my other chart. But this was a breakout retest, and this is not something that I personally traded. The volume was very, very low on BNT. But this had some fundamental news, and a lot of the fundamental news that's going on lately is staking. But there wasn't really a level that you could get in at personally on BNT once this level broke. But once this level broke, where's your take profit? Well, I mean, a 57% trade right back to the top of here is pretty good. Even a trade right here, 25%, is also good. So let's keep going through, taking a look at some charts. Troy, this is one that I am watching right now, actually. So what we can see is on our weekly level, this was our weekly resistance right here. So coming up pretty close. This was also weekly resistance. It broke, had a really nice volume push, came right back down, tested the top of that weekly. So you can take an entry here, and your target is resistance there. But on the daily chart, same thing, right? But this is a little bit cleaner. Resistance, breaks out, support there. Again, this was not a trade I took. I'm just doing some examples for you guys specifically. I look at a little bit more higher volume coins. These are 33 to 50 sats, but a lot of these are moving, so I want to go over them just so you guys can see how they're traded. Now, this is one of the ones that I was mentioning before that looks very similar to the last project that we looked at. So we broke this level. So if we come back down to this level, that'd be a pretty decent buy with a stop below this demand candle there, that little bullish pin bar on the daily. And so if we get that, then what we'd be looking at is right there and right there. And this could run, but again, we want to just play on probabilities. We want to lock in our profit, especially in this market where, you know, anything kind of goes. But this trade still is 44 and 82%. So very, very nice trades overall. TOMO, this is a range bound coin. So support, resistance, support, resistance. So this is a trade that we're currently in. We have a trailed stop loss. Basically, we made about 10% on this project so far. But one worth considering. Now, if it breaks and closes above here, that is our daily supply structure, where if it breaks and closes here, that would be very, very bullish. And we'd be looking to target here and possibly even up here. REN, this is another one of those coins listed on Coinbase custody, similar to Lend. Less clear, but we have that diagonal structure. Typically runs with Ravencoin. Ravencoin's not really running. This was mostly on the Coinbase news, I believe. Not a super clear chart, but we did have a daily resistance zone here. You can even go right there. That was broken and then came back, retested it, and moved to higher targets. I would be setting my take profit target here, but it is pushing and testing this upper level. So if I was in REN, I would probably be taking profits at that zone. All-time high, if I could short it, I probably would. Until it flips this level, those are usually signs that they will head back down. And there's lots and lots of different examples. Okay, Strat. I do see a lot of people talking about Strat. If we look at the weekly level, there's a very massive upside. This was one of the unicorn projects of 2016. They got some bullish news in 2017 and made a big run in 2018 even. Had this massive dump and then it pumped about 580%. So we are currently right at weekly resistance. So this is where I would be cutting profits unless I saw a break and close like that. So something like that. So if I get a nice volume break above, otherwise it's probably going to look something like this, where you get a 40% drop and then we go back down to these lower support zones, where these are not bad to play off of, but you really want to look at daily and hourly zones, and you want to look for like 4-hour like pin bars or bullish divergences, something to get in on. Yeah, see, I don't even see like a really clear structure here. There's a little bit of a 4-hour supply zone there that breaks, closes, and then you'd be targeting, you know, upper highs as target 1 and then the highs here at target 2. So let's keep going. MDA, I really like this trade. So this is one that I'm watching right now. Modea loyalty points has something to do with aviation, but this zone is really, really important if we take a look at it on the weekly. So I'm just quickly scanning. I'm teaching you guys how to quickly scan these altcoins because we talk about Bitcoin a lot, but I do want to cover these altcoins because in markets like these where you get 50 to 200% moves, it's really easy to compound gains pretty quickly, especially if you've suffered some losses. You can make those back with these altcoins when you flip them pretty fast. You just want to make sure the volume is there so your liquidity can get in and out. But if you're trading with a $3,000, $4,000 portfolio, you shouldn't have any issue in getting in most of these. But you always want to check, make sure that the volume is at least minimum 80 to 100 Bitcoin in a 24-hour period. So Modea, MDA, we got that horizontal weekly resistance level. We've got a bit of an inverse head and shoulders accumulation going on. Okay, we know that there's demand in this zone. Once this flips, I do expect probably it to run all the way up to this zone, and then we're going to see a pullback, and then we should see it push to higher levels. So that's what I would be looking for. Now, if we do see this level break on a daily structure, okay, what I would be looking at then is to zoom in. So daily structure, I'd probably use this level here, 52.58, 52.60. So what I would be looking for is I would then zoom into the 4-hour or even the hourly to find my breakout pullback, because it could be fast, okay? And then I would just set a stop below, let's say, this trend here. Simple trend line there. Stop below there. If it closes back in the range, that's usually a swing fail pattern that you don't usually want to hold those sorts of altcoins any long time. So if it breaks up and closes back down, that's a failed reclaim, and we don't want to be in the trade, and we want to get out until we see this thing break and close on the daily. So if it breaks, closes up here, then we can use the hourly to find our entry, and then our targets would be right there. And that would be a pretty strong RR trade. That's 24%, and our stop below the trend line there. We could even probably put a stop below the low there. So 10% and 25%. And that's just the first take profit zone. Looking at it on the weekly, our level there, and then if it breaks that, flips that, so we take profit there, and if it breaks that and flips that, then our next level would be all the way up here for 60% profit. So something to keep in mind. There are lots and lots and lots of opportunities in the market right now. You want to look for those coins that are under, that haven't moved a whole lot for some of these structures and these patterns. Now, this looks like an absolute shitcoin chart, okay? But what this is showing is that there's a lot of supply in this area, and this is just like any other altcoin chart. This is an accumulation pattern, lots and lots of wicks, not a lot of volume, but this is the pattern that whales use to basically accumulate these coins before they start market buying with Bitcoin, and they pump it up, 100, 200%, and then they exit. So this is the structure of crypto, and we're actually seeing this structure a lot in a lot of the cannabis projects on the stock market, penny stocks, lots of things like that. So just be aware of those types of things. And one thing that they do like to do in these types of markets is they do like to put in one candle like that, where they fill a lot more supply. They take out all the stops of anybody that longed through here who's got like a 5-10% stop. So they take out all the supply. They take out all the demand, all the stop losses, and then they put the candle to the upside. And I'll see if I can find a good example of it. Yeah, right there, boom. So they put in that one candle, and then they take it to the top side, 57%, 55%. They put in the one candle, boom. They put in the one candle, 22% candle. They run the stops below. So it's really hard to manage your risk in an altcoin like this, and so that's why we use those high demand pivot breaks. So once it breaks that level, we buy that level instead of trying to accumulate early. If you're going to accumulate, you accumulate on the zone here, and if that zone breaks, you just exit. Okay, and so if you're going to accumulate, know that you could be holding something for, this is a year daily chart. Okay, Theta is a really good example of one that we accumulated for a long period of time. This was in the 1,000 sat zone, accumulation, never broke that accumulation structure, and then it paid off with the big move to the upside, 416%. Basically double topped on this last move up here. If you remember the chart that I showed you before, looks really similar. Raven was another one that you could really just accumulate in that lower zone. Accumulation here, breaks up. Accumulation, same zone, breaks up. Accumulation, same zone here. And you can see every time we touch that 280 to 300 level, it always pumped up and gave us a nice, 50, 60%, came down, nice 50, 60%. Once it broke here, now what I'm looking for is this level to flip, okay? I'm not bullish. I'm not looking to do anything until it breaks and closes above this level. And once it does, then I expect we can see it move on. But this is a chart where we just see more and more weakness from the whales that accumulate this coin that like to move it. They probably exited way up there. I think that's enough altcoins for today. Let me know if you guys like these videos. Let me know if you want me to do more examples like this. Not a lot of technical analysis gets shown on altcoins like this. It's kind of an older school pattern that we saw from, I've been trading altcoins since mostly 2016, the Bitrex, the Poloniex days, the Cryptopia days, but the pattern still applies because a lot of times whales like to do this over and over and over. And what they like to do is, when Bitcoin is ranging like this, they like to pump all those altcoins because Bitcoin is being nice and it's behaving itself. But when we see big dumps like this, or when we see big breakouts like this, that's when all of your altcoin positions can get ruined in just an instant. So if you're in a lot of altcoin positions and you're expecting breakouts, a lot of times just one little Bitcoin dump can really affect all those. And so we're not going to go over Bitcoin today, but just beware that there is a lot of things that you need to be aware of when you're trading altcoins, like the volume and the liquidity that comes with them. Follow the news cycles, because a lot of times you can see something like Palm Beach Confidential with Tika Tawari. He put out a sell alert. I'm trying to remember which coin it was specifically. TNT. TNT was on this massive uptrend, up 1,000%, and he said, we recommend selling TNT. Well, you're not going to be able to get out of this trade. And in about, a day, this thing dropped about 60% in about a day. And so if you were, up here expecting breakouts, we broke this all-time high, maybe you're buying the retest, all kinds of different things. Anything can happen in crypto. A huge miner can sell. You can see something like Matic, which was one of my better trades here. You can see Matic comes up, tests the all-time high there. I mean, to the tick. But then something about leverage or a team selling, don't remember exactly what happened, but again, we saw this massive 16% candle, and then the next day we saw a 72% drop. So somebody made a fortune on the short, somebody made a fortune on the long, but this is kind of the nature in crypto, and this is why I always encourage, if you see profits that are life-changing for you, make sure that you're locking in those profits. All right, guys, let me know if you like this video. Click like. If you're new to the channel, click subscribe, and I will see you guys on the next video.